everyone. It's Dr. Shridharani here in New York City at Luxurgery. Obviously, a lot going on in the world, and especially here in the US, primarily in New York. There was a lot of great information, I think, that went out with our last discussion on COVID with a dear friend and colleague of mine, Dr. Cespedes, talking about the infectious disease part of this new coronavirus. And today I wanted to follow up by popular demand to actually bring a different component of this discussion with another really wonderful friend and colleague of mine, Miss Colette Lettieri. She is an empowerment coach and a licensed clinical social worker based here in New York, and also with an office in West Hampton, who's going to shed light on mental health and how we can stay healthy, both emotionally during this really physically taxing time. So Colette, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule from the family to be here and talk to our viewers on Instagram at Luxurgery.
No, thank you so much for having me. I actually was able to get some alone time right now. So everyone is busy doing something, hopefully somewhat productive, and I'm yours. So I'm excited to talk.
Well, wonderful. So kind of piggybacking on that, you have a lovely family and you have two young children at home, and you're a woman who's used to being on the move. So how are you handling being at home, talking about, I guess, wellness and mental health and that component? What are you doing, strategies, or how's that treating you?
Well, truth be told, I'm okay. And I think we are okay. And I think because of my background, I do obviously have some different coping skills, and my personality being what it is, I'm a doer. So in times like this, and although I've never experienced this before, I go on to work mode. I go on to my type A personality, and I put it in drive, and that's what works for me. It's been a very interesting time because we are social distancing, and even that has changed, and even that has now become stressful.
Makes sense. Well, so what I'm curious about is you commented obviously on this whole, of course, social distancing, right? So
Yeah.
first and foremost, we know that that's going to hopefully help flatten the curve. We're seeing that work around the globe with
Yes.
limiting the amount of overall exposure. What does that do to us socially and emotionally to be confining or to be keeping ourselves away from others?
What I'm finding is people are struggling with connection because you're so used to your routine. As you and I have discussed, I mean, you're part of my routine. Kasha at your office is part of my routine. I have a manicurist that Sandy is part of my routine for 13 years. And whether it's your hair colorist or your hairstylist, these people all sort of become part of you and what makes you or makes you feel a certain way. And suddenly,
well, I'll stop you for a second just to let you know, even though we're part of your routine and you haven't had a chance to come in for a while, you're looking great. So you're clearly following the skincare routine that Kasha and the team put together, because you don't look like someone who's missing out on her Botox or filler. So you're looking great. I'll start with that.
Well, I appreciate that. And I have you and the gals to thank for that. And we could talk about your beard later and
yes,
what's
absolutely.
the sudden hair growth. Okay.
Yeah.
No, and that's just it. I think what we're doing is exactly what I'm starting to encourage people to do within reason. So let me say a few things. The first thing is we sort of had this slow progression of this is what's happening in China, this is what's happening in Italy, and then we started to see cases come into America, and we had to figure out ways to connect. And I think week one of the, please leave space or please only go out if you need, everyone jumped on text messaging or Snapchats and FaceTiming or Zooming. And it was great because you thought, okay, I have people. This is my network. I can do this. And then suddenly week two phased in, and we were asked to suddenly become teachers and housewives more so, and to work from home and to find this balance. I've started to add physically distance, so for me, and me personally, I'm a true Italian. I love a bit, a hug or a kiss hello, or, a gentle touch of endearment if someone is saying something, and suddenly I've been stripped of all of that. And then I'm now removed and put into this very intense physical proximity with my family. And how do we handle all that? And, you know, knowing me personally, I tend to plow right through. I tend to just get up and go. And what was happening towards the end of last week is things were imploding. Things that I had in place suddenly were not working. And there was this moment where I had to stop and hit pause and say, okay, wait, hold on. This is me. How do I make this work? Because if I'm not working, no one else is going to work, you know, and not saying that they couldn't, or my husband couldn't take over. I'm not saying that, but simply I needed to sort of take charge, and the maternal person in me needed to figure out how to balance the professional person in me, as well as the social side of Colette, you know. And what I vowed yesterday is what I've been encouraging a lot of my clients to do, which is simply have a reset button, and you are given permission to hit reset at any point in the day. It does not mean you're failing. It doesn't mean you have to totally start over. It means hit pause, and before you continue down a certain path, if it's not working, figure out how to go down a different avenue. And what's wonderful about that is you can take a breath. This all makes sense in terms of the peak and what we need to do. So now we have a purpose. We are going to take these 4 weeks. And what I've said to my clients between yesterday and even this morning is we're going to have set times to talk. So I'm starting to put these boundaries in play, because what happened the first 2 weeks was Friday bled into Saturday, bled into Sunday. And suddenly I was doing calls or answering 1,000 text messages, and I had no off time. And that's not how it would work in any other time and place, you know. So that's the first reset, is the boundary of work.
Perfect. So first reset, creating a boundary, like you said, at work, because many people can't use their cell phones at work, don't take social calls unless they're taking a break. So rather than just bleeding and turning into this ambiguous day, we create this reset. During your reset, you're using it to create social boundaries so you can get things done that you need to without feeling overwhelmed. Is that fair? Okay.
100%.
It's a really great coping mechanism for individuals. Another strategy?
I was going to say another thing we started to do, and I'll just put it on me and my family, is instead of a to-do list, because we're not in a traditional time, is we are calling it today's journey, because every day seems to be something a little bit different. Another way to kind of help during this time is keeping with technology-free time and zones, meaning during dinner, we would never have our phones or the news on, because this is our family time. And it's a great time to really sort of do that daily check-in, even though we haven't left each other.
So it sounds like you're using a journey every day now to create structure. So maybe it's not so ambiguous. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Because I noticed myself trying to do that without having learned some of these strategies from you already. But before, the first couple of days where I've been at home, I just felt like I was just tending to random stuff throughout the day. Like I didn't really have the structure. I'm so accustomed to kind of being the OR for these 4 to 5 hours, or in the OR to do this surgery. Then after I finish that surgery, I have this next surgery. Then after that surgery, I've got 15 patients. I have all these structured checkpoints. And now I just kind of had this open day, and I was trying to struggle with what do I kind of do to fill that time, but to make it actually make sense. So sounds like every day is a journey. Things are changing around us really quickly. I'm going to check in with myself. But now within that journey, I'm going to create some structure and follow that as if it's a normal day or some routine. Those are all good, again, strategies and just different things that people can certainly do. Obviously, you and I right now are using social media to communicate, but it can also be very overwhelming. Tell me what you tell your young college aged and obviously well beyond that, which are young even in plastic surgery practices. Tell me what you're telling individuals about how to limit or what to do about the amount of exposure they're getting to COVID, or being scared about everything they're hearing. and social media and FOMO and all the things that people can do? Help me understand that journey.
Well, for me and for what I see working right now is I am connected to people I trust.
Okay.
So I'm no longer taking a thread of a text and someone shares, oh, did you hear this new fact? Or did you, and I will send you an email. I will send my doctor an email. You know, most doctors' offices now have either themselves or nurses or nurse practitioners lined up to just field phone calls of anxiety or symptoms, or even emails of, you know, facts. And a lot of them are doing a wonderful job with just saying, hey, here's today's update. The other thing that's really good too is local legislation. So you have your local assemblyman, get on their mailing sites. It takes 5 seconds to do. Here are the numbers. This is what we're doing. And it really does reduce it, because now you're dealing in, okay, here's the truth and what can I do? And that's why I'm saying to people, staying home is a huge way to reduce the pressure, because you're not exposed to anything. You know, do you have a system in play that allows you to be safe and protected and not as exposed?
Well, it's great. So what I took away from that was basically, once again, the structure and boundaries. Social media can be valuable to connect with individuals, but it can also be detrimental, which we already know. We already knew this in general.
Totally.
I'd say now more than ever, it can also be something where you're so free or don't have structure or a construct. So you're just inundating yourself with this on one channel and this medium and all these different elements. So I think really looking at it as a very, what I've taken away from this conversation so far is the concept of the journey and looking at each day, because it is changing. What we knew last week about this changes. And so you've got to be a little bit willing to understand that there's going to be new challenges that are occurring every day. Then within that, creating some element of structure and maybe being patient with ourselves, because a lot of this is out of our control. But what is in our control is who we engage with, who we trust, where we're getting our information from, and how we're going to connect with individuals. Is that fair to say?
Spot on.
So you and I spoke recently about a very fun and very important concept you came across. Do you mind sharing that with myself and, of course, with our viewers?
No, not at all. So my dearest friend sent me a text, and I have this new rule now where my cell phone goes off usually between 8 and 8:30. So I didn't get it until the morning. And
Boundaries,
it was
right?
about the table of 8 and who would be seated at your table. And it's really about the people that you connect to, because they bring out the best of you and they understand the worst in you, you know, and they know how to drive the course with you, so to speak. And it's funny because right now what I am finding is you have to know who makes you feel comfortable during this time. And
Meaning
if a
the
person's,
table of 8 being
yes,
people that you would want at your dinner table. Is that's kind of, so if you were
yeah, for
having this
sure,
intimate,
and for all different reasons.
Mhm.
You
And
know,
does your
maybe,
table of 8 change depending on the day of the journey?
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. You know, you and I spoke earlier today, and similar, you know, just who would be inspirational in your business and who would help keep you motivated. And yesterday I needed more of my friends that would want to talk about this trashy love story that I was listening to while cleaning my house. You know, so I think every day the dinner party would be different, and that's what's important. And I think it's also then important to kind of segue into, well, are, you know, the people in your life and what roles do they play, and also knowing that it's okay that not everyone can rise during this time. Some people are just too terrified or can't get out of their own way, or really are struggling with looking at themselves sort of depleted from their people, whether it be their plastic surgeons or their estheticians, or just even their coworkers or their associates or their barista that they've just become so accustomed to.
Well, I'm going to call it Colette's table of 7 because there's always going to have to be a spot for me at the table. So I'm going to
Totally,
reserve
totally.
mine because I've eaten with you before and eaten your cooking when you've been so kind to have me out at your home in the Hamptons. And I know for a fact that there's going to be table of 7 because my spot's always got to be reserved.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. And so far you stayed tried and true. So yeah, you're invited.
Well, I mean, I think that was a really wonderful point. I am so grateful for your time. I want to summarize a few key elements for
Perfect.
all of our viewers. So what I took away from this in a top line level is, first of all, you saying to really create some structure, create boundaries, which ties in with creating some structure. Is that fair?
Yes.
And then also, I love the concept of table of 8. In your situation, it's table of 7 because I'm always taking a spot at your table. But creating a table of 8 and realizing that that table could change, right? There's a journey every day, and the people
Absolutely.
that you need to support you and who you want to support may change, which ties in with trusting individuals and trusting your sources of information.
Absolutely.
If you follow this correctly, it's going to have a great impact because this too will end. Is that fair?
100%. And I think exactly how you just summarized it is spot on, because this is a journey and this is a transition. And the beautiful part is the entire world is going through this right now. This is not just in New York. So when we come out of it, it's really this story of, well, this is who I am now. And these are my maybe new goals, or this is the evolution I had while I was home for almost 6 weeks. And really respecting that about yourself, and respecting how others may have also transitioned and grown or even had some setbacks during this time.
Well, that's very important and fair to say. Once again, all of our viewers, thank you so much for taking the time. I hope you found this as informative as I have, speaking with our amazing colleague, Colette Lettieri, again, empowerment coach, licensed clinical social worker, who really breathes, and lives strategies to keep us all mentally fit and mentally healthy during this trying time. Colette, you said, you've got the Italian background, and anytime you're in the office, we always embrace. So I think it's only fair that we, mwah, mwah, there we go. And the Indian in me had it right all along, even though I'm a touchy-feely kind of surgeon. I would say namaste, social distancing, still being respectful. So really appreciating your time and really loving the fact that you've kept this really upbeat attitude throughout a scary and strange time that we will persevere through. So to you and your family, please stay healthy. All my best. We look forward to seeing you at the office. Keep following your skincare routine. You look great. And I'm going to keep figuring out what to do with all this madness that's growing over here. I know you're not used to.
We can talk about that later.
That requires a full session, I'm sure. Take care. Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you.